Everyone to the April 27th, 2022 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. I'm Candace Breyer, Chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a 9-person volunteer board nominated by the mayor and approved by City Council. First, we will hear from Planning Services, represented tonight by John Barrett. Then the applicant or their representative will make their presentation. Applicants will have 5 minutes in which to make their presentation. Staff will keep time and announce when 30 seconds are remaining. Public comment is available in person or remotely. We will first call on individuals present to address the board, then remote participants. To speak during a public hearing or during public comment remotely, press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 938-1648-1007. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand using the last 3 digits of their phone number, or by name if available for those accessing through the web link. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds. We may ask questions of either the city or the applicant. We will acknowledge any written comments received by the board. We will allow an appearing party to express their support or objections. The board will then discuss the appeal and formulate a motion to approve the appeal. 5 affirmative votes of the board will be required for an appeal to be granted. Finally, any qualified party who is aggrieved by a decision of the board can appeal that decision to the Washtenaw County Circuit Court on a timely basis. Let's see, we have roll call. I am here. Mike Daniel.
Here.
Dave DeVarty. Chris Madigan.
Here.
Julia Good.
Here.
Chris Fraley.
Here.
Todd Grant.
Here.
Elizabeth Nelson. We have a quorum. Approval of the agenda. I will note quickly that petition ZBA 22-2002 at 1211 White Street has withdrawn their petition. So because it was public noticed, we will take any public comment on that petition, but understand that the board won't be discussing the appeal at all or making any decisions on it because it's been withdrawn. So other than that, are there any questions or comments on the agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Chris, thank you. Support from Mike. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to approval of the minutes, we have minutes from the March 23rd, 2022 ZBA meeting. Are there any questions, comments, corrections on those minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our March meeting? From Mike, support? From Chris, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to public hearings, we have petition ZBA 22-2005, 2280 Chaucer Court. John?
Do we want to wait one more minute? Well,
Let's talk slow.
okay.
It's been 5 minutes. You should be
All right.
time.
I'm John Barrett, zoning coordinator for the city of Ann Arbor. The first petition this evening is ZBA 22-2005. The address is 2280 Chaucer Court. Frank and Sarah Rampton, property owners, are seeking a variance from Table 5.17-1, single-family district dimensions, to complete construction on a screened porch at the rear of the existing home. The rear yard setback is 30 feet, and the owners are proposing the screened porch to be 26 feet from the rear lot line. The property is zoned R1C, single-family residential district. The subject property is located at the end of Chaucer Drive, south of Scioto Church Road in the Lawton neighborhood. The home was built in 1986 and is approximately 1,923 square feet in size. The owner is proposing to finish construction of a 21-foot wide by 9 feet 6 inch deep screened porch attached to the rear of the home. The construction was started prior to the issuance of a building permit. The project was issued a stop work order by the building department in August of 2021. A permit building 21-2059 has been applied for and is currently on hold. The screened-in porch is to be finished on the existing deck and will be screened in and used as unconditioned space. I'm going to try to screen share this. It's not sharing. Kristen, can you hear me? Or
Yes, I just set you as the co-host again. Could you try it one more time? If not, I'll be happy to share it.
it's not accepting my password for Zoom.
I'll,
Hey, John, I had trouble a couple of times this week getting into the city's Legistar website. And it wasn't the fault from my end, so I don't know if anybody else had a trouble. I had a couple of times to try to attempt to read some of the attachments. I had to wait an hour and try again, so the fault was not at my end as far as I could tell.
So Kristen, do I just see, it's not accepting the password.
but you're already in the Zoom meeting, correct?
I thought I was, yeah.
Yeah, I see you in here. So it's asking you for a password to share your screen.
Yeah. Well,
Is it fine with you if I share my screen with the PowerPoint?
yeah, I guess so. Do you know how to do this? Why it's not working?
Before we do that, I'll take you out of the meeting and then put you back in.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone. Bear with us for just a moment. We're having some technical difficulties with Zoom.
There's the option. There we go. Can everyone see that now?
Yeah.
All right, good. Kristen, are you able to see that?
Yes, looks perfect.
Okay, good, all right. Sorry about that, everybody, but we're up and running. The first slide is the zoning map. You see the highlighted parcel in yellow, the subject property, in the center of your screen. And as I said, it's at the end of Chaucer Court, and it's just west of Scioto Church Road. The next slide is the location map showing surrounding properties and existing conditions. And the next slide is the zoomed-in aerial photo of the subject property. The next slide is the survey that was submitted with the application. As you see, showing that it's the proposed new screened-in porch is going to be 26 feet from that rear lot line at its closest point. This is the application that was, or a diagram that was submitted with the application. If the owner wants to comment on that, I will bring it back when he can come on this landscaping proposed screen. But you see where he's, from the previous month, when the previous application was heard in February, the proposed porch is going to be moved back, and it's going to be in line with the existing deck. And you can see that on this screen. These are the photos that I took at the subject property, the front of the house. And this is the current state of the construction as it exists. And then this is the close-in photo. You see where the existing footing is in relationship to the deck, and it's going to be moved back to that furthest, the deck portion in the far background. And that's what was shown on that previous slide. This is another angle of showing the deck and its relationship to where the proposed sunroom is going to go. It's going to, if you just imagine, it's going to go straight up from the existing deck. Just another photo of the current conditions. And that's the abutting property owner. That is the end of my presentation, and I will take any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, John. Any questions? Dave?
So, John, it looks like, I know this came before us before, it looks like they're proposing now the screened-in porch just to come as far out as the existing deck?
That's correct.
Just a question, would they, if they do that as the enclosed screened-in porch, if we do and give them that variance, and they keep this extended roof, as long as they don't close it in, would that be, or is that
The roof line will have to meet the rear
the
yard
variance?
as well.
So the roof line cannot go into the setback?
That's correct, because it's a extension of the existing home, the same roof line
Okay,
in the home.
gotcha,
So the previous application that was heard in February was seeking a 9-foot variance,
right.
and this one's 4 feet. So they're proposing to move it back 5 feet, and that's in line with that second portion, the farther background of the deck.
Right. In fact, it looks like on the furthest, the closest to us in the picture, they would actually be at the setback line at the corner of the house. And then it would go, where it meets the deck is where they need the variance.
It's going to.
Because of the
From
shape.
what I understand, it's going to be in line with this.
I understand, but if you
Yep.
look at figure number 1, if you go back, I guess maybe, or do we not have that in the, oh, right there. So do you see what I'm saying? It looks like the setback at the corner there that extends out from that right-hand side of the house.
Right here?
Is at the, yes, is at the setback line.
Yes, I believe there is a portion of it that's going to meet the setback.
Okay,
And just remember that eaves, gutters, and overhangs are allowed to project up to 2 feet into it.
gotcha.
Any other questions for staff?
I,
Yeah, go ahead,
is
Chris.
there any other, because I wasn't here in February, is there anything else any other discussion that happened, or is that basically the gist of it? That this is what they proposed, or they proposed what exists and it was denied?
Correct.
Okay.
Julie?
So the current request is 4 feet over. And could you tell me how, what the depth of the deck will be? Like, I'm trying to, if they didn't have the 4 feet, is there still a deck? Is it only 5 feet?
Well, the deck can
Well, the porch.
remain, yeah. So the porch will be 4 feet into the rear setback.
But what is it in total? Like, if we don't give the variance, does that mean they've only got 2 feet to do a porch, or 5.5? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for John? All right, if the petitioner is here, please come forward, sign in, state your name for the record. You'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Sarah Rampton. What else was that just said?
Your address?
Oh, 2280 Chaucer. So hopefully this time we're asking for a smaller ask, and that we're bringing the screened-in porch back 5 feet, including the roof line, which is a third less than what we asked in February. It'll match with the existing deck. And the left side of the porch won't even need a variance because, as you mentioned, Dave, it's 30 feet. And the right side just needs a 4-foot. Any questions?
Any questions for the petitioner?
And the drainage we fixed. It's going to have a dry bed on one side and a dry creek on the other. We cleared the berm, so we improved the land a lot.
No questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
If there's anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this petition, please come forward now. If you are accessing the meeting remotely, please call in, or if you've already called in or are accessing via the web link, please press *9 or raise your hand. Staff will call on you.
There are no callers.
Thank you, Kristen. I will note that we did receive written correspondence from Jack Jordan at 2290 Chaucer in support of the request. And I believe there was one more.
There was one more, I think.
Yes, from Anna and Gordon Beeman at 2295 Chaucer Court, also in support. So with that, we're closing the public hearing and we are in discussion. Chris?
Yeah, I don't like being in the position where you have to pinch someone, but I think the petitioner has done an admirable job of abiding by what the zoning requirements are here, and I'm going to support this.
Dave?
Yeah, I was one of the people that opposed it last time as being too much of an ask. And one of our standards is to be the minimum necessary. And I note that at one end of this enclosed screened-in porch, it actually meets the setback requirement. It's the only other, at the other end, that it needs a little bit of a variance. I think this is the minimum required or minimum necessary, or, you know, they've really scaled it back. So I'm going to be supporting it.
Any other discussion? Chris?
I see this variance as failing to meet standards C, D, and potentially E. This seems to be a self-created issue. I don't think that the property itself presents issues that are unique to the property. And though I do applaud that you reduce the request, I think that's important. I also don't think that it would do substantial justice to nearby or other properties in the city. I think it would grant rights, basically development rights that aren't granted to those in its zoning district by allowing a covered space in a setback that applies to other lots with basically similar development issues. So I'm opposed to granting the variance.
Thank you, Chris. Any other discussion? We ready? Oh, Julia?
Sorry, I'm kind of on the fence, and part of it is I do feel that it is a little unique that like one corner of the deck works. You know, it is an odd cut in the backyard. You know, so that if we didn't grant it, they could have part of the deck in, but then they'd have to have the deck get much smaller. And it is one of these odd things I appreciate. They're cutting it back and trying to do the minimum. I'm not sure it is the minimum, and I'm not sure, like, making the effort of filing twice means you should get it, which is what it feels like a little bit to me. So I guess I need to decide quick.
Any other comments? We ready for a motion? Chris?
Yep.
Thank you.
ZBA 22-2005, 2280 Chaucer Court. Based on the following findings and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants a 4-foot rear yard setback variance from Chapter 55 Unified Development Code, Table 517-1, Single Family District Dimensions. The applicant is proposing to complete construction on a screened-in porch at the rear facade of the home. The screened porch is to be built per the submitted plans.
Have a motion, do I have support?
Support.
Thank you, Dave. Chris Fraley.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Chris Madigan.
No.
I vote yes. Mike Daniel.
Yes.
Dave.
DeVarty, yes.
Julia.
No.
2, 3, 4, 5. The request is granted.
So much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Moving on to petition ZBA 22-2003, 3805 Waldenwood Drive. John?
All right, 3805 Waldenwood Drive. Khalid and Nazim Mahmood, property owners, are requesting relief from Section 5.32.2, alteration to a nonconforming structure, to construct a sunroom addition to the rear of the existing nonconforming home. The new sunroom is approximately 355 square feet in area and will not encroach further into the rear setback. The property is zoned R1B, Single Family Residential District. The subject property is located on a cul-de-sac lot in the Waldenwood neighborhood west of Earhart Road and south of Glacier Way. The home was built in 1978 and is approximately 2,817 square feet in size. The new construction will allow for a new basement area and first floor sunroom. The sunroom dimensions are 15.3 feet by 19.7 feet and will square off the northwest corner of the home. The second floor will receive a 1-foot 4-inch window seat for a child's bedroom. All construction will not encroach further into the existing established rear setback of 19 feet, 4.25 inches. Moving to the PowerPoint. You see the subject property highlighted in yellow on the first slide. It's the zoning map. And you see Glacier Way, the property is due south of Glacier Way. The next slide is the location map. It shows the existing conditions and surrounding properties. And the next slide is the zoomed-in aerial photo. These are the floor plans that were submitted with the application. You see the proposed basement plan right here in the upper left corner. The next slide shows the first floor plan, which will be the enclosed sunroom. And you see it says a window well below, oh, excuse me. Then the second floor plan shows the window seat right here on the second floor. These are the elevation drawings. This is a back elevation. And this is the side elevation showing the area of where there's going to be a proposed sunroom right here. These are the photos that I took when I was at my inspection. You see the front facade of the home on the cul-de-sac. The next slide shows the side yard. The next slide shows, this is the area where the proposed sunroom is going to be, right here. This is the back of the home, and this is where the proposed sunroom will be on the left-hand side. And this is just a close-up photo of where the proposed sunroom addition will be in this corner of the house. And just another area showing that. This is looking from the side yard towards the area where the proposed sunroom will be. And this is looking at the neighbors to the north. And there's one other thing I will show as on the aerial photo. You see, this is the rear yard of this property, and you see how it's non-conforming. It does not meet that rear yard setback. And so they're going to put this sunroom right in this area, right here. And so it won't encroach further into that rear setback, and that's why it's an alteration, because it's not going to encroach any further. And then so it'll be a basement, a sunroom, and then the window seat will be back over here, but it won't encroach further than that portion of the home as well. So the window seat and the sunroom will require the alteration. I can take any questions at this time.
Thank you, John. Chris?
Is there no site plan on this?
Give me 1 second. You guys, give me 1 second to
Here's
possibly find that.
a certificate of a survey with the site plan.
You
can go on.
The site plan looks like there's a different property line than there is on the zoning map, or the overhead, the aerial shot, like significantly different.
The GIS
Hold on.
property lines are often off by a few feet
Yeah.
across. It's normal.
I apologize for not having that slide. It's right here on your screens.
It's okay, it's in the packet. and it
It's in the
was
packet too, yep, it's in your.
Yeah.
Yep, so it's right here on the screens.
Gotcha.
You see where the it says first floor deck existing?
Yeah,
That's where the sunroom's gonna be. And then you see the relationship to the rear, that rear lot line is 21.3. The window seat will be up here. It will not encroach further on that side.
Gotcha.
And then this sunroom with the basement below will be right here. And so it's not encroaching any further into that rear setback. That's why it's an alteration.
thank you.
Any other questions for John? All right, if the petitioner is here, you can come forward, state your name. If you are.
My name is Nazdeen Mahmood. And I'm Khalid Mahmood.
All right, you can begin. You'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
So we are proposing to add the sunroom space with the basement below it. This is in addition to the west side of our property and the rear yard. We would like to extend the sunroom along the northwest corner of our home. Most of this sunroom would be built in the required rear yard. We do not propose to extend it farther than the existing side and back walls of our home, as you can see on the attached drawings.
And as John mentioned earlier, this is an existing non-conforming structure. We do not know how it was approved before. If we bought the property more than 10 years ago, and that's how it was. So there's an existing deck. Our purpose is to cover it with and use it as a sunroom. And in the process, we want to include a basement in there. And at this time, we have looked at it. It should not encroach or inconvenience any of the property, any of the neighbors. And one thing I do want to point out earlier in the presentation that John made, there was a mistake. It's on the northwest side of the property, not the other. There are two decks behind our house. It's on the northwest side, not the other one that John earlier was pointing out. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the petitioners? All right, if there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, please come forward. Sign in, state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Porch and my husband is here with me. We live in 3795 Waldenwood Drive, which is the house in the back of this house. So we've been thinking about this project quite a lot, how to be a good neighbor while keeping our home as peaceful as it is now. So we're not taking this lightly. So in general, we're objecting to this project with what we know of the project. And then to put some context to it, both my husband and I work fully from home, and we spend most of our time in the kitchen, the living room, the deck, and the vegetable garden. And all these are facing to this project, the side of this project, or directly to our neighbor's proposed project. And you also have the measurements. I think it's about 20 feet from their deck end to the border, and like another 25 feet from our border to our deck end. So I sent a photo, and here right now, basically when we look at that house, we see a big wall with 2 bedroom windows. And so that means that when we are in our living quarters during the day, we're staring at a wall. And when they're in their bedrooms during the night, we're not in our living quarters, so we're not really facing each other that much. And I think, or we think, this might have been intentional by design with the houses, so that there's privacy. But we're worried that this will change with the sunroom, because sunroom is a year-round, 24-hour living area. And our neighbors stopped by the other day to explain the project. We really appreciate that. And they said that they're going to be using this as a yoga room or when they have guests. But sunroom is not portable. So when they move, they're not going to move it to sunroom. And we wouldn't, if they move, and we wouldn't know what the next owners will do. So yeah, again, we're worried about it, and we asked for project details to see how many windows there would be. And we were told that those are not finalized yet. So we're not even sure what we're opposing or agreeing on if they're not final. So of course, if the end, and that's how we decided to oppose the project. But if the end, if the council decides to approve the project, of course, we fully respect that. But we would like to have 3 requests in that case. One of them is, the plans are not finalized. Can they have less than 30% window facing us? The other one is we would like this construction to be starting in the fall. We have families coming out of the country for our daughter's graduation, which is going to take place in the backyard. And I think, we think in Michigan, like everyone deserves a construction-free summer. And then finally, we would like them to plant evergreens in their yard to provide some privacy. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's your address? Which is your house on this picture?
The one that's
This one.
The one on the court? Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this petition? Either in person or if you're accessing the meeting remotely, please press *9 or use the raise hand function on the web link. Staff will call on you.
All right, caller with the username Jane. You'll have 3 minutes to address the ZBA.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Jane Crew Hamilton. I'm representing the neighbor to the west, which is 3809 Waldenwood. And the property line is actually farther to the west than your yellow line shows. It's going right through their shed. I have a few comments. Right now, we see quite an overcrowded view. We see a shed, a big generator, a fence, overcrowded landscaping. There's really no open space in our view of this house. And I didn't even know that sheds and fences were allowed in our neighborhood, actually. And currently, there are trees and berms and wood chips are on our side of the property line, and I would like that rectified, certainly before any building gets going, if this is approved. The wood chips get in my mower, and much of that landscaping is on our side of the property line. I'd also like to confirm that the shed has the proper setbacks and that it's not too close to the property line. And if the project is approved, which I definitely oppose it, but any trucks and heavy equipment, I'd appreciate it if they'd use the east side of the house this time, because when they built the shed, much of the equipment was coming on our property to get back there. That's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is anyone else who wishes to speak?
No other callers.
Thank you, Kristen. I will note we did receive some letters, but I believe they are from the same individuals who have spoken in person, both in opposition to the
Yes.
project.
That's correct.
Yes, and with that, the public hearing is closed and we're in discussion. Todd?
Yes, I read the two letters, and it was nice to hear the two neighbors commenting on this. I'm in favor of voting for this because the fairly loose standard non-conforming structure, I realize it's not supposed to have a detrimental impact on a neighboring property. To what degree, of course, is not specified, but I would note that wood chips and bad landscaping and construction timing are not the purview of our group, so I believe those things totally drop out. Regarding the one that might perhaps be larger in some of your reviews regarding the number of windows, where now there's a blank wall, essentially a privacy concern. But of course, the building envelopes aren't going to change. They're not going to get closer to each other. And this is something that can be addressed, obviously, with window treatments. So in my view, this drops out as well. And it would be nice, of course, if the neighbors talk to the folks in construction timing, but when the project starts, of course, is not part of our purview either. So I look at the neighbors' objections as really irrelevant, would be too harsh a word, but they drop out and don't hinder my view in voting for this project.
Chris?
I would like to second all those points and also point out that the constraint on this is the corner lot issue that we see so often. So that is what brings it in front of us. And that's about all I have to say.
I just wanted to bring up the concern for the neighbor who spoke. A lot of times people see these GIS photos, and like Mr. Madigan pointed out earlier, these are good references or tools and guides, but due to the curvature of the earth and photos being taken from an airplane, there is some distortion. And just to let the concerned neighbor know that the shed is 5.5 feet from that lot line, which does meet code, and that is based on a certified survey. So I just wanted to bring that out for the record.
Thanks, John. Mike?
Yep, I'm going to echo my fellow commissioners' points and just want to say that I appreciate where the neighbors are coming from, but to me, by staying in the same envelope that they're in now and someone just wanting to expand the use of their property, I mean, if there's noise issues, there's ordinances for that. So without further encroaching, to me, this meets the lesser standard that we have of a non-conforming alteration. So I'll be voting for it.
Chris?
I did have one question with regard to some of their concerns, and it really looks at the question of, in this neighborhood, is there an HOA? And if there is, then all those issues that Todd brought up really can be addressed through the HOA and not here. And so I want the neighbors to understand that.
Not sure if there is.
Well, they should know.
Any other comments, or are we ready? Dave?
I have a question for John. So it looks like there's a 5-foot setback on one side and a 40-foot setback on this other side, and then 30 feet setbacks on both the street sides. Is that accurate? Is that like it's, the one yard is thought of as a side yard and the other one's thought of as a backyard? I'm just wondering why the different setbacks there.
Are you looking at the survey?
Yeah, the site plan.
And which setbacks were you asking about?
So this, let me come over.
The site plan?
So right here, this is a 5-foot setback. This is a 40-foot setback?
Correct, that's the rear.
Why isn't this a?
Because the
Because
rear
there's
yard,
two fronts.
yep, and the rear yard is opposite of the shorter of two linear frontages. And
Oh, so that's the shorter linear.
Of the two, yes.
I got you.
Yep,
And that's just by.
correct. And the frontage along the east side is 105.13.
Gotcha.
And the frontage along the front, where the driveway side is, Waldenwood Drive, is 145.22, therefore putting the rear yard on the west side of the property.
Gotcha.
Have any further discussion or motion? Chris?
I'd make a motion.
Thank you, sir.
ZBA 22-2003, 3805, excuse me, Waldenwood Drive, alteration to a non-conforming structure. The Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants relief from Section 5.32.2, alteration to a non-conforming structure, to allow a new sunroom addition and second-story window seat to the rear of the existing non-conforming home. The new 355-square-foot sunroom and window seat will not encroach further into the rear setback than the existing residence. The construction must comply with the submitted plans.
Have a motion, do I have support?
Support.
Thank you, Chris. Todd?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Chris Madigan?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Mike Daniel?
Yes.
Dave?
DeVarty, yes.
Chris Fraley?
Freely, yes.
The request is granted.
Thank you, everyone, for approving it, and to our neighbors, we appreciate your comments, and we'll make everything to all the issues you raised, and we'll come talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to petition ZBA 22-20000, 1207 Gardner Avenue. John?
All right. Don Zuber, architect representing the property owners, are seeking a variance from section 5.16.6, subsection A to C, accessory uses and structures, to construct a new detached garage 1 foot from the rear lot line. The owners plan on demolishing the existing garage and building a 13-foot, 4-inch by 20-foot garage that will be 266 square feet in area. The planned garage will meet the side yard setback requirement of 3 feet. The property is zoned R1D, single-family residential district. The subject property is located at the intersection of Gardner Avenue and Ferndale Place, west of Packer Road in the Lower Burns Park neighborhood. The home was built in 1926 and is approximately 1,746 square feet in size. A non-conforming detached garage existing slightly less than 1 foot from the rear lot line is proposed to be demolished. The existing garage is to be replaced with a new, slightly larger detached garage that will be 1 foot from the rear lot line. The applicants are proposing the variance to allow a 5-foot distance between the two structures for better access to the rear yard. Moving to the PowerPoint. The first slide is the zoning map. You see the subject property highlighted in yellow in the center, just west of Packard Road on the north side of Gardner Avenue. The next slide is the location map, showing surrounding properties and existing conditions. And the next slide is the zoomed-in aerial photo of the subject property. The next slide is the survey that was submitted with the application. You see the existing one-car garage, and outlined above it is the proposed new garage. And it's going to meet the 3-foot side setback and requesting the 2-foot variance to the rear. And you should see on this next slide that it shows the red line indicates the proposed new garage, showing the 5-foot separation between the principal structure and the proposed garage. And gray line indicates existing garage to be demolished. This is the floor plan that it was submitted. As I said, it was 13 feet 4 inches by 20 feet for approximately 266 square feet. You see it meeting the 3-foot side setback here, and then the 1-foot request in the rear. This is the side elevation of the proposed new garage. This is the front elevation of the proposed new garage. You see it's just a little over 12 feet in height. Another side elevation. And the rear elevation. These are the photos that I took at my inspection. See the front of the house and the garage in the background to the right. Coming down the driveway, looking at the existing garage. And you see the distance between the fence line and the existing garage on the side. There we go. This is in the backyard, looking at the other side of the garage, the west side of it. And this is looking at the rear of the garage, how it exists currently, approximately 1 feet, and you see the distance between the neighboring, or the abutting property's garage. This is looking down the side elevation and the relationship between the house and the detached garage and the rear yard. And this is looking at the rear elevation of the existing home and the relationship between the two structures as they currently exist. Another look down the side of the garage and at the abutting property. And that is the end of my slides and my presentation. I'll take any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you, John. Questions? Chris?
Did you say that the 5 feet between the principal house and the accessory structure was something that they've proposed for ease of access, or is that a minimum distance requirement that the city has?
It's for ease of access.
Okay. Is there a minimum distance that the city requires between principal and accessory structures?
There is not.
Okay.
Once there's certain distances, they have to do fire-rated construction, but they're allowed to be less than 5 feet.
Okay.
Any other questions for John? All right, if the petitioner is ready, you may come forward and sign in, state your name for the record. If you're accessing online, you may begin your presentation. You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Don Zuber with Studio Z Architecture at 409 Plymouth Road in Plymouth, Michigan. I'm sorry, yeah, Plymouth Road in Plymouth, Michigan, sorry. I think John summarized our request very well. As you can see, we're trying to keep the garage pretty much in its existing footprint, just make it a slightly larger space for storage of a modern vehicle and some lawn equipment. The 5-foot space between the house and the garage, we're trying to maintain so that if there's any need to get any kind of equipment in the backyard to take down a tree, for example, that we're not totally blocking her backyard off. The site plan shows just how tight the other side yard setback is. The house is actually non-conforming on the west side. So hopefully I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? Dave?
I have 2 questions. The existing garage is closer to the rear setback than what you're proposing?
By an inch or two, yes.
Is it on the rear setback line, or on the rear lot line by any chance?
It is not on the rear lot line. It's approximately like 11 inches or 10 inches off the rear lot line.
Okay. Why are you tearing this existing garage down?
There are water infiltration problems. There was one photo that John showed of the side of the garage from the backyard, and you could kind of see the siding kind of goes down below the surrounding grade. So the homeowner has had issues with water infiltration. She's had issues with a cracked slab that apparently lets water in as well, and she has squirrels and other small animals that have taken up residence in this garage.
Okay,
It's in pretty bad shape.
thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, thank you. If there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, please come forward now. If you are accessing the meeting online or by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand or use the raise hand function on the web link.
There are no callers.
Thank you, Kristen. I will note that we did receive one letter of support from Hugh Huntley and Elizabeth Stern at 1206 Gardner Avenue. And with that, the public hearing's closed and we're in discussion. Julia?
John, I know I've asked you this before. At what point do they need a variance? Like if they leave the roof and do repairs?
Well, they could remove the roof and do repairs. So it's, once you exceed it's 75% if the structure is demolished or damaged, so exclusive of the foundation. So they could repair the roof, yes, without a variance. But,
Okay.
you couldn't just leave one wall up and take 3 down and the roof down, and that would be exceeding, the code says once it's 75% of the appraised value by the building official. And so, you could replace and repair the roof, but,
Okay.
this request is to completely demolish it and, I think, start a new foundation and start all over, and generally the same exact location as it currently is.
I'm just trying to figure out, it doesn't seem to be meeting the list of standards. As far as practicality or as far as a unique lot or as.
Is that it? Yeah. Okay.
Todd?
Well, I was humming along thinking this would be easy, and Julia Good's question has now got my brain working overtime. So I understand this is being looked at under the seeking a variance criteria, but under the standards of alteration to a non-conforming structure, there's, which John has reminded me of more than once, that if you tear the structure down, and if this thing is dilapidated as they say it is, it's not worth very much, then it should not be replaced. So I realize there are 2 separate inquiries, but if we really think of the structure as the garage, it's a separate structure from the house, and they decide to get rid of it, it's non-conforming because it's a foot from the lot line, aren't we compelled to just say, too bad, you chose to rip it out, you just don't get to keep it? Versus, the other part of my brain is saying, well, this is a crummy garage, you don't want it to fall down on the car, what's the big deal? We're just gonna put it back in the existing envelope. So I'm not sure how to reconcile this conflict. Are they allowed to essentially do an end run around the prohibition on continuing a non-conforming structure by seeking a variance? I need some enlightenment on this, or maybe I'm just getting too confused about this.
Dave?
And that's sort of a long question. I was looking for some help, John, sorry. We're
You're looking at me.
ripping out a non-conforming structure. They're choosing to do that, so you don't get that.
I was waiting for your colleagues to respond to that.
It was two.
I'll give it a
Chris,
shot.
yeah?
Oh, or Dave, you go.
Dave?
Yeah,
Somebody?
I have a
Ready?
question.
Yeah, but that's good, that's good.
What's the required setback from the rear that they're asking a variance from?
It's 3 feet for accessory structure.
So they're asking for basically a 2-foot
2 foot,
variance?
correct.
But they could, okay.
Chris, did you have?
Yeah, so I agree with your thoughts a lot. I think I'm very split because it doesn't seem to be a problem that is unique just to this lot. If you look at the survey, there is an existing garage just behind this property that probably would run into the same problems if they needed to replace it. And so I'm not sure that the property presents a practical difficulty that is unique to the property, or is at least exists in this neighborhood. And so I don't know how widespread it is, but if that's the case, perhaps an amendment or some kind of waiver process would be more appropriate than a lot-by-lot variance. But at the same time, this lot was clearly made for different standards, and to deny a variance to replace a garage that's crumbling, I think may deprive them of development and property rights that their neighbors enjoy, just because their garage happened to hold up longer. So I think I'm inclined to support it for that last reason, but it is difficult to say that it is a issue that is unique to this property and not occurs in other similar properties.
I will agree with what you just said, Chris. I'm kind of in the same place. I thought at initial look this would be easier than it is, but there are a lot of nuances to this that make it a little more complicated. I think I'm also leaning towards support on this just because I think it is a minimal request. They're proposing a one-car garage that dimensionally is very similar to the existing garage that's there. I think if it was a bigger structure or something more elaborate, I would be more inclined to oppose it. But since it's, for all intents and purposes, a one-for-one replacement of what's there, I think I'm okay with it. Dave?
I grew up in this neighborhood, what they call Lower Burns Park, or untenured Burns Park. I moved in 1980. I actually, with some friends, bought a house across the street from where my mom continued to live and where I had grown up. There was a 3-stall garage built on the property line that had been built with concrete block sides, so it wasn't going to deteriorate, right on the lot line. I think there are a lot of garages in this neighborhood, those that still exist. Many have been torn down, especially where there are rental houses. A lot of them have opened it up so you could fit more cars for parking. I have no problem supporting this. I think these rear setbacks in this sort of case, what's the purpose? So I can comfortably vote for this.
Julia?
So I could ask, what's the purpose of a lot of Ann Arbor's existing zoning code? But I'm supposed to be enforcing the existing code. And I don't think it would be denying them use of having a garage. You know, if you come 2 feet forward and you take 6 inches off the length of the garage, and then it takes you a foot closer to the house, or you do some landscaping and get rid of the brick and put in a rain garden and address the water problems you're having. I don't think holding to the code would deny them having a garage there.
Chris?
I think the argument that you just made, though, once you start downsizing this existing structure to be rebuilt, you really start to talk about a garden shed. I mean, this is a really small structure. I'm looking at the side view there where we were looking at the pictures, or the sash window, and I'm thinking, I don't own a car that I could fit in there. I'm kind of, we're violating our trust here if we don't go along with what you say, what your good argument is. But I also, I'm torn the saying that I can't, you couldn't be able to put that back up, and you're coming away from the property line further. I guess it's a small structure to begin with, and I want to support this. I really do.
Do you want me to start making the arguments why people are going to have to stop owning SUVs?
They don't have an SUV in their driveway. I don't believe that's an SUV, or if it is, it's a small one.
Mike?
Yeah, want to echo what I heard from Dave and others. I mean, this is a rear setback that backs up into another garage. This is an easy yes for me.
We ready for a motion?
I'll make it.
Thank you, Chris.
ZBA 22-2000, 1207 Gardner Avenue. Based on the following findings and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants a 2-foot setback variance from Chapter 55, Unified Development Code, Section 5.16.6 A to C, Accessory Uses and Structures. The applicant is proposing to complete construction for a 13-foot 4-inch by 20-foot garage that will be 266 square feet in area. The new garage will be 1 foot from the rear lot line. The garage is to be built per the submitted plans.
Thank you, Chris. I have a motion. Do I have support?
Support.
Support. Thank you, Chris. I vote yes. Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
DeVarty, yes.
Chris Fraley?
Fraley, yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Julia?
No.
Chris Madigan?
Yes.
The request is granted. Moving on to petition ZBA 22-2004, 309 East Madison Street. John?
Rob Burrows of OX Studios, representing the property owner, is requesting relief from Section 5.32.2, alteration to a nonconforming structure, to construct a 2-story addition to the rear of the existing residence. The home is nonconforming for lot area, lot width, and required side setbacks. The existing residence is a duplex with 2 bedrooms in each unit. The addition will increase the bedroom count to 6 bedrooms in each unit. The proposed addition will be offset 4 inches on each side and will not encroach further into the side setbacks. The property is zoned R4C, multiple family dwelling district. The subject property is located near the intersection of East Madison Street and South Fifth Avenue, west of Packard Road. The property is located on a steeply sloped site that slopes downward from east to west. The existing structure is a two-story wood-framed residence built in 1901 and approximately 1,265 square feet in size. The basement is currently being used for mechanical equipment and storage. The proposed addition will be approximately 17 feet, 4.5 inches by 18 feet, 3 inches for a total of 320 square feet of new living area. The basement will be converted from storage and mechanical functions to habitable living area and bedroom spaces. The existing door and windows will provide separate access to this unit. The addition will connect to the basement and expand the dwelling unit. The unit will connect via internal stair to the addition on the first floor and complete a full dwelling unit. The first and second floors are to be combined to form the second dwelling unit. Moving to the PowerPoint. The first slide is the zoning map. You see the subject property highlighted in yellow on the north side of East Madison Street near the intersection of South Fifth Avenue and just west of Packard Street. The next slide is the location map showing surrounding properties and existing conditions. And the next slide is the zoomed in aerial photo of the subject property. The next slide is the survey that was submitted with the application. You see the subject property highlighted in dashed red lines. The next slides are the floor plans. You see the proposed addition highlighted in gray, and this is the basement level. You see it's bedrooms 3, 4, and 1 and 2. And then the level first floor plan, you see bedrooms 5 and 6 on the first floor, and then the other unit, you see the big units or bedrooms 1 and 2, and unit B. The next floor plan shows the other 4 bedrooms on the second floor, not part of the addition, which is on the basement level and the first floor. These are the photos of the subject property, and upon my inspection, you see the front of the house. You see the west side of the house looking down it, and you can kind of see the sloping terrain and the difference in elevation. And this is looking up the street. You see the University of Michigan building in the background. This is the rear of the facade and the proposed area where the addition is going to be, back here. And the backyard. And more of the backyard and where the proposed addition is going to be in relationship to the adjacent properties. And some more of the backyard looking to the north. That is the end of my presentation. I'll take any questions that you have at this time.
Thanks, John. Any questions? Dave?
There's a driveway to the west of this house. In some of the pictures, there was a red car parked in it. And is that driveway part of this lot or the adjacent lot?
I believe it's a shared driveway with the west lot. We can ask the applicant that, though.
Okay.
But that, from what I understand, that is the parking shared driveway with the adjacent property to the west.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for John? All right, if the petitioner is ready, you may begin your presentation. You'll have 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you. My name is Rob Burrows, representing Jones Properties, the owner of the site, owner of the property. Address is, it's with OX Studio. Address is 2373 Oak Valley Drive, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48103. John, thank you again for a very clear and concise and direct presentation. I don't have much to add. I should clarify. I can respond to Mr. Tabardi's question, but I do want to clarify that the addition is a 2-story addition on the back, so that second floor does indicate 2 bedrooms in the addition zone itself. off the north or rear side of the property. It's a very tight lot. It's 33 foot. The lot on the corner of 5th and Madison does contain shared parking for both parcels. Sorry, I'll let John flip through. So that is actually an addition on the north side of the 2 bedrooms, just to clarify.
I apologize about that, yep.
No, that's so why I'm attempting to clarify it. And it is very limited. The intent of the addition is to step back or shoulder back from the building, both from, so we have complete compliance definition of where the addition is being proposed, so it does not step into or intrude further into any of the setback conditions. It does not go into the rear yard setback, of course, either, so we're not forcing any additional level of non-compliance. The west property, as pointed out, John, if you wouldn't mind going back to the aerial. There is no drive or dedicated parking on this property. It does in fact share parking and access to that parking through that drive and that gravel lot at this time. I have nothing else to add in terms of comments at this point, and will be available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
I will point out, if you look at your sheet A5, and you can see it on these floor plans, you see there's the 4 foot or 4 inch inset that they're talking about, so it won't encroach any further into the side setbacks than the existing house. You see the house lines here, and then there's a 4 inch gap. Or excuse me, 6 inch gap.
Yeah.
6 inch gap.
I was going to correct that, but it's actually slightly
6 inches.
larger.
Any questions for the petitioner? Dave?
Yeah, question for the petitioner. Is the adjacent lot to the west, is that owned by the same property owner?
It is owned by the same property owner, yes.
So the shared parking is in their control?
That's absolutely correct,
In the
yes.
same control as this owner, or that you're working for?
100% correct, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, thank you. If there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, please come forward. State your name for the record and sign in. You'll have 3 minutes.
There are no callers.
Hi, good evening. My name is Claudius Vincents. I live on 545 South 5th Avenue. That is just up the hill from this property. And so compared to all the other projects you have considered tonight, this is your back addition on steroids. It's a 3-story addition. In reality, it adds 8 bedrooms to a small house. And it's non-conforming. Yet we can't do anything about the existing structure, but the addition is non-conforming. And and it's therefore illegal. I read in somebody's appraisal that this would not change the neighborhood. I don't think that was written by somebody who knows the neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that's very diverse. It has professionals, a lot of graduate students. A lot of people live there for many years. There's even some gray-haired ones who live there. And so it's very diverse. And it includes some undergraduate students as well. But jamming in this many into a small building will severely impact the whole neighborhood. And you may already sniffed it out that there's an issue with the new owner not only bought 2 houses, they bought 5 houses last summer that all served by this parking lot. So there's a serious crunch with doing this type of illegal additions on all kinds of resources. Probably the one we are most worried about is that if you look at the actual bedroom plan and layout, what will these people do the minute it gets warm enough to go outside? They will not hang out in their bedroom. They'll go out to those backyards. It's one of the largest green space privately owned in downtown Ann Arbor, and that will affect everybody who lives on this neighborhood. So basically, if you vote for this deviation, you are basically giving in to the economic forces that convert in whole blocks of downtown into student ghetto. And currently, it's not that. But this, and and they will use if you decide to admit this today, this is precedent to do the same thing to the other 5 houses. And the neighborhood is lost at that point. So I appreciate your judgment and your long-term view on this neighborhood. But it's on a vastly different scale than what you have decided on in the rest of the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Todd.
Sir, I only got your first name, Carlos, so I didn't.
Claudius.
Claudius.
Hi, Claudius.
Okay. Okay, sorry. So could you expand a little more on your statement? I don't really logically follow your contention that by, as you put it, cramming a bunch of people in this little house will infect the entire neighborhood. Could you explain that and also make it personal as in terms of where your property is?
So
I'm
my
not missing the
property
logic of
is
it.
right on the north end of the site plan that's published. So our backyard is adjoining to these backyards of those 5 houses.
Do you have a fence between your property?
Yeah, there's a
and-
fence, a link fence, a metal link fence.
So they can't get into your property?
You
Well, they could jump the fence,
you don't know
anyway.
what drunkards can do, but yes, in principle not, yes. Yeah, and the noise for sure. So-
But how would it affect the entire neighborhood, sir?
Because there's, so this is a large area, so there are these 5 houses owned by this company, then comes our house, and then there's further houses up the hill that are all impacted by the noise that is.
Well, that's what I'm asking, the noise, in other words.
Yeah. Well, and the parking obviously is also an issue. The parking lot that they have there is not big enough for 5 houses and all the people there.
And what noise would there be?
Beer pong noise, to be specific.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chris, did you have a question as well?
And, sir, at this point, we get to ask you
Oh,
questions.
sorry.
So you are the owner occupier of the house that's adjacent to the north?
Yeah, so the house, we have 2 apartments in it. We live upstairs, and we have rented the downstairs to professionals for more than 30 years, or graduate students. And obviously, we are concerned that that type of occupancy will become difficult with
So I'm still not clear on, you are immediately to the north?
Right, yeah.
Okay. And what roughly is the size of your lot?
Oh, boy.
John, could you go back one?
It's a pretty big lot. It backs up against the same.
When I look at the GIS map here, it looks like your backyard could be roughly the same size as their lot?
Yeah, like the lot of those 2 houses just south of us, they sort of are built on the same parcel, I think. And so the backyard, those 2 backyards are of similar size.
This property owner owns
Or
these
bigger
lots
houses, maybe.
Oh, okay.
that they're redeveloping for density.
All right. And how long ago did you buy the piece of property?
We bought it in 1992.
Okay. And at that point, the university was there?
Yeah, they have since built the addition, the Perry Building addition. For a long time, the Perry Building was actually almost not used. It was empty, then they renovated the old part, and then they built the new addition.
But South Quad was still there.
Well, that's further
And West
away.
Quad was still
Yeah.
there. And that neighborhood has been student housing for decades, is that right?
No, it has been, that's exactly my point. It has been very mixed. And certainly not a undergraduate student heavy impact.
I used to do snow removal in that neighborhood, and the vast majority of those properties were not owner-occupied, rather they were rental
they were
housing.
rented out, yeah. These 5 houses were owned by Walter Spiller, who was a mailman in Ann Arbor. And unfortunately, he passed away about 10 years ago by now. And that's how this sale came into fruition. And he carefully managed the neighborhood by choosing his renters so that there was a nice mix of graduate students, professionals, undergraduates, and he went even further than any landlord would go and chatted with them, took care of all their problems, and what this constitutes is a complete reversal of that, so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you made some claims, and I just want to, like, elucidate that even 30 years ago, this
It was
was
rental,
adjacent
yes,
to the
it's rental,
university.
yes, but there are different kinds of rentals. And just look at the floor plan of this proposal, and it tells you what people will rent those bedrooms.
Mm-hmm. And were there 6 beds were the increase, not 6 bedrooms? Was that the?
So there's currently 2 bedrooms per unit, and that's going to go to 6 bedrooms per unit.
So there's 4
Four
for each?
4 in each. Yes.
4 in each, okay. All righty.
And this
Thank
is
you.
the first of 5 houses, so.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you,
You're
sir.
welcome.
If there's anyone else who wishes to speak on this petition?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Beverly Strassman, and I live at 545 South Fifth Avenue. That's the property that has a backyard that abuts the next backyard, which abuts the backyard where this addition would be built. And I'm president of the Germantown Neighborhood Association, and I'm speaking on behalf of the association, and we oppose this proposal. What it entails is taking a 1,265 square foot house and adding 8 bedrooms. Okay, it has 4, they're adding 8 to a 1,265 square foot house. So essentially what's going to happen is there's going to be not 1, but now 2 6-bedroom units. Okay, 2 6-bedroom units when currently there's only 2 2-bedroom units. So an increase of 8 bedrooms. This proposal will have a detrimental impact on surrounding properties. This is through noise, and I'm going to give you a list, okay? Partly it's through noise. Students play their record, well, people don't have record players anymore, whatever they make music with, their computers. They play it, they have their windows open. They have parties. They have a right to do that, but it's going to adversely impact us. It will affect my sleep, it will affect my health, it will affect my safety, having inebriated beer pong players right next door to us. I think that if you imagine what it would be like for you to suddenly have 2 6-bedroom units right next to your house, you wouldn't have to think too hard about how that would adversely impact you. Okay, we've been owner occupied. We bought the house in 1994. Richard Jacobson and Marianne Zorza live on the block. There's been Walter Spiller. There's been an attorney, I forget his name, at the end of the block. There's been our next door neighbor, John, who's lived there. There was an elderly man who died and an elderly woman who died. This has truly not just been a student neighborhood. And to the extent that it's been a student neighborhood, it's been graduate students, there's been lots of young professionals. I don't agree with the characterization that this addition will blend in with a student-oriented housing area, i.e. the implication that it's already noisy, it's already kind of one of those sacrifice zones. That's not true. I'm a faculty member, like many of my neighbors. I need to live close to campus. A lot of graduate students need to live close to campus. This is one of the last places in Ann Arbor where you can be in a nice, quiet neighborhood close to campus. For those of us who have to get in, maybe feed cells and culture, things like that, that demand our being in proximity. So that's what's going to be lost. Okay, our opportunity to have a nice, quiet neighborhood where our health and safety is
30
protected.
seconds.
Illegal parking in front of our house, it's a steep hill, that threatens our safety. What else can I say in 30 seconds? Please vote no for this, it's too much for this lot. the characterization of the existing occupancy, that's subject to verification. We know who our neighbors are. They've not been undergraduate students exclusively. Undergraduate students are there. As my colleague said, it's mixed. So please vote no for this, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Any questions?
If there's anyone else who wishes to speak on this petition, there's no one else here, but if there's anyone remotely, please raise your hand or press *9. Staff will call on you.
Daniel Jones.
Hello. My name is Daniel Jones, and I am the sole owner of the parcel in question, the petition parcel. And I have a couple of questions and a couple of points. There's been a lot of talk about how we should make sure that we steer these rentals toward grad students or professionals. In my profession, what is illegal is for me to steer toward a particular socio or economic or educational status. That is illegal. I am asking for a exception or a variance to a zoning ordinance. I'm not trying to do anything illegal. What I am encouraging, what I hear is encouragement that we continue to do illegal practices, which is steering. My own daughter is moving into the house next door to the subject property. Her and her boyfriend, who are both students at the University of Michigan. There's also been a lot of talk about inebriated tenants, and I think that there is history for sure about inebriated younger folks, but there are plenty of inebriated older folks as well. And I think it's an unfair assumption that any undergraduate student is going to be, in quotes, an inebriated beer pong player. They have a responsibility, anybody who is a neighbor has a responsibility to uphold the ordinances within the city of Ann Arbor at all times. I was handpicked by Walter Spiller's sister, who inherited these properties, as I too knew Walter Spiller. I was handpicked to purchase these properties because I have a reputation for one to not tear up and disregard neighborhoods and those properties that are within the neighborhood. Do realize that this is a step toward development.
30 seconds.
There are more significant developments that could be asked for in this situation, cumulatively. Thank you.
Thank you. There's anyone else who wishes to speak on this petition, please raise your hand.
There are no callers.
Thank you, Kristen. With that, the public hearing is closed and we are in discussion. Chris.
Yeah, I would like to uphold Mr. Jones' comments about disparaging people who have a right to rent a space. And I guess if the issue at hand is that the neighbors don't like who's renting there, I dare say that they probably had an opportunity, maybe, maybe not, but I have a sneaking suspicion that these properties were available to the public. Maybe I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Okay. But nonetheless, I think Mr. Jones brings up a really good point, that it is illegal for him to steer properties or people to certain properties. And I would like to underscore that Thank you.
Mike?
I mean, I'll just say, right, this is alteration to a non-conforming. It's not increasing the footprint.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is, but it's not outside the.
Or, sorry, I apologize. It's increasing the number of bedrooms, but it's not encroaching further into the setbacks, right?
Right.
Sorry. So that
Within
was,
the building envelope.
that's what I meant, the building envelope. I don't care who gets rented to here. There's other ordinances to deal with noise. Like a fear of people being loud in their backyard is never going to cause me to not vote for something on this board. I'm just, it could be loud undergrads, it could be quiet undergrads, it could be loud grad students, it could be quiet grad students, it could be loud professionals, it could be quiet professionals, it could be loud retirees, it could be quiet retirees. Threats of noise are not in our purview, so I'm going to be voting yes on this.
Julia?
Oops, there we go. Yes, I understand the concerns of neighbors that it is frightening when somebody new comes in and buys up buildings and has basically a goal of making profit, because that's why you become a landlord. But I think looking long-term, and the city does have a goal of reducing its carbon, the way to do that is to have the center of the city become even denser than it is. And the way to do that is to reduce the amount of parking available, that there's not available parking spots for, not everybody's going to be able to have a car if we're going to reduce climate change. So I think looking forward, this does totally fit in. And the one thing to take under consideration when we're doing the alteration to a non-conforming structure is what the neighbors say. But in this case, I'm concerned that the neighbors have said things that do come close to violating the fair housing law. And
Can I just say?
No.
No, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry, the public hearing is
I
closed.
don't-
Excuse me, the public hearing is closed. The public hearing is closed, thank you.
So I do, am in favor of diverse neighborhoods. I'm in favor of density downtown. So I'm going to vote for this.
Dave?
I'm afraid I'm fighting a losing battle. I've always been in favor of the historic nature of some of the near downtown and near campus neighborhoods, retaining some of their historic nature. This neighborhood, historically referred to as the Germantown neighborhood, has seen significant changes, increased density, more parking problems. Alterations to non-conforming uses do give us latitude, but it's clear to me that this, in my opinion, will have a detrimental effect on neighboring property. Other changes within this neighborhood have already had detrimental effects on neighboring property. I'm not in favor of density for density's sake. And I'm afraid that increasingly that's what we're seeing, that people are just saying, oh, density, density. And we're seeing these 15-story buildings, 17-story buildings proposed. And, it's okay. I think it's hard to close the barn door after the horse is out. And I think a lot of these things in D1 and D2 zoning, these tall buildings, are happening, and they're going to happen. My fear is that we change these neighborhoods that have 2- and 3-story wood frame construction that are historic and give the city character. I'll be voting against this. I'm afraid because there's such a strong sentiment in favor of density for density's sake, no matter what effect it has on neighboring properties, no matter what effect it has on parking, on-street parking in the neighborhood, no matter all the extra demands on infrastructure that it places on our community, I think that these sorts of things are going to continue to pass. But I would hope that people will agree with me that there is something to be preserved here, and I'll be voting against this. It is a non-conforming use. It's totally within the rights of this zoning board to deny alterations to non-conforming uses, especially if we determine that it has a detrimental effect on neighboring property. So I'll be voting against this.
Todd?
Well, there's a lot to think about here. Ever since universities have been in existence, whether it was in Europe in the Middle Ages, and certainly the entire history of Ann Arbor, has always been town-gown friction. And against that, of course, is that the university is the engine that drives Ann Arbor economically. Yes, there are other companies, but the big Godzilla in Ann Arbor is the university. And where are students going to be when they don't have cars is in a place that's within walking distance. And the university has increased enrollment, there are more students. And I do agree with Dave that density, just for density's sake, does have effects on a neighborhood. It changes the neighborhood. But this would be the place where, if the city were to grow more dense, and it has, is where it should grow more dense. Certainly the large apartment buildings for rich students in this town have had a large impact on the small houses next to them. And it does have it changes the neighborhood. But I don't think that in this case I'm ready to say that it has a detrimental effect on the neighborhood. And I do have a little bit of hesitation. I would not want to live next to a fraternity. I have a very negative opinion about fraternities. I think they should be gotten rid of. But that's my own personal opinion, prejudice, some people might say. But I'm not willing to paste all students with the label that at 3 o'clock they're going to be out there, stripped to their britties, drunk and running around the street. I do know, because you can't drink when you're under 21, that everybody that I see playing beer pong when I bicycle around the university is obviously over 21, as we all know. But humor aside, I think that the owner has a right to do this. I think it will have a change on the neighborhood. But I'm not willing to say in this case that just because the likely market is going to be students, but it might be other folks, but it's probably going to be students, that means because of their status as a student, that they're going to have a negative impact. In that case, the entire campus area would have a negative impact on the city. But it does not. It's the engine that drives the city. So I understand what Dave is saying. If you grew up in a neighborhood, it's tough to have the change. It's always difficult to have the change. But I think that with the loose standard of a non-conforming structure, I'm going to vote in favor of this. But I think there's always going to be this type of fear and concern. It's always going to happen near campus. It's happened through the entire history of this city. It will continue to happen. Personally, I've not been in favor of these big structures all over the city, but that's beyond my power. That decision has been made. With some concern to the changes in the neighborhood, I'm not willing to reject this proposal. I will be voting in favor of it.
Chris?
So I don't know if anyone else on the board is, but I'm a renter. I rent in Ann Arbor. I guess I'm the right kind of renter because my wife and I are young professionals. It's brutal out there. It is hard to find an apartment, a house, any kind of unit at a price that I can afford. I have a graduate degree. I have a good job. My wife does too. It is expensive in this city. It is hard. There are lots of students. There are lots of young professionals. There are lots of not young professionals that just need a place to live. And I really reject the idea that this would be density for density's sake. We need units. And the city should be desperate for units because people like me people who aren't like me, they can't afford it. They're going to go to Ipsy, and then Ipsy's going to get expensive because everyone from Ann Arbor went to Ipsy, so they're going to end up in Ipsy Township, and you're never, ever going to hear from those people. You're not going to hear from the people who benefit from more units on the market. And it's not just for students, right? The more places we have for students, the easier it is for adults looking for a place to live in this city. And I just, the idea that adding places to live for people is bad for a neighborhood goes against all that I see good in planning. And it is disappointing to hear people say that. It's the addition of beds and dwelling units to something that exists in walking distance to the university. The city needs that. It's not bad for the neighborhood. It is a plus for the city. It is a plus for the people who work here. It is a plus for the service workers who need dwelling units. You're right, there's not enough parking on site. But people need a place to live. I'm going to vote yes, and I encourage everyone else to do so too.
Chris?
My esteemed colleague, Mr. DeVarty, brought up a good point, that this is a historic neighborhood, and I think that petitioner...
It's not historic.
No.
It's not historically designated.
Let me finish.
I just want that for the record.
That's actually what I want to say. It has historic nature. Technically, it's not historic neighborhood. But to the people that came up and spoke, I would say, if you feel that this is something that shouldn't be happening in your neighborhood, create a historic district. There isn't one there. There are many blocks around where there is no historic district. But you are correct. It's a significant space. It has its own name. It has old houses that need to be protected. And I would put it to you that perhaps this is a point that you want to look at and say, maybe we need to do this. So I just want to make sure that's on the record, but I also agree with Chris down at the other end that this is, I don't believe this is density for density's sake. I believe this is something that we need, and since there is so much pressure in Ann Arbor, this is the place where density should happen. That's all I have to say, and I'll be supporting this.
Dave?
I just wanted to respond to a couple things. I'm not against this because of the who. I'm a strong supporter of fair housing, and I put up, when there was a campaign, a WIMBY, welcome in my backyard sign in my yard, which I kept there for over a year. It's not the who, it's the what. And I do want to, again, say, I think that this is density for density's sake. I think it's placing onerous demands on the neighborhood, certainly in the parking demands that all these new bedrooms are going to add. I've lost votes on this before, and I'm sure I can count the votes. I'll lose it again. I do want to say, in response to Todd, the owner does not have a right to do this. It's a non-conforming structure. It's up to us to say what's important, what are our values on this board. My values are with the nature of the neighborhood, and I'm not willing to support increasing density here that is going to place unreasonable demands on the rest of the neighborhood. So I'm going to vote against it. I know I'm going to be outvoted. That's okay.
Mike?
I think a lot of great points are being made by all of my fellow commissioners. I will say, this isn't a 15-story high-rise, right? Like, if you say, if you're gonna have any density, then why not this? Like, I get not wanting multiple skyscrapers downtown, but this is not that. This is more density, but it's not a 15-story building next to where these folks live. So, in that sense, I would think people who support any density at all would welcome something like this versus another 15-story building. So I'm gonna continue to vote yes on this.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Motion?
I think we're ready for a motion. Chris, thank you.
ZBA 22-2004, 309 East Madison Street, alteration to a non-conforming structure. The Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants relief from Section 5.32.2, alteration to a non-conforming structure, to allow construction of a new two-story addition to the rear of the existing residence. The existing non-conforming duplex will increase from 2 bedrooms per unit to 6 bedrooms in each unit. The addition will not encroach further into the side yard setbacks and will meet the rear yard setback. The construction must comply with the submitted plans.
Thank you, Chris. I have a motion. Do I have support?
Support.
Thank you, Chris. Mike Daniel.
Yes.
Dave DeVarty.
DeVarty, no.
Chris Fraley.
Fraley, yes.
Todd Grant.
Yes.
Julia Good.
Yes.
Chris Madigan.
Yes.
I also vote yes. The request is granted. Moving on to petition ZBA 22-2002 1211 White Street. As I noted at the start of the meeting, this request has been withdrawn. However, if there is anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this petition, please call in now and raise your hand, and we will hear your comments.
There are no callers.
Thank you, Kristen. With that, the public hearing's closed, and we will move on. We have no unfinished business. New business. It being April, it's up for election of officers and review of bylaws. So I guess we'll start with election of officers. We have a chairperson and a vice chair. So we'll start with the chairperson. If anyone is interested in being the chairperson, I'm happy to give up this seat. Dave?
I'd nominate Candace to be chair. I think she's been standard that hopefully someday I would be able to meet. She just chairs these meetings with great aplomb and respect for all, and I nominate her for chair.
Thank you, Dave.
I'd second that.
Yep, third that.
Okay,
She
thanks.
swings a heck of a gavel.
Strong gavel use when needed, too.
You know, sometimes, yeah.
First time I've seen it used in 3 years.
All right,
May I pose a question?
certainly.
So I would fourth what Mr. DeVarty said, but I'm looking here at little section 6.1. It looks like people are term limited. I'm happy with you continuing for the indefinite future, but perhaps the powers that be have a different opinion. Looking at page 4, section 6.1. John, do you have an opinion about that?
Didn't you bring this up last year?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, Tom.
But now that we have the bylaws right in front of us, it's a little bit more glaring.
So is anybody going to care? I don't think anybody will care. I'm perfectly fine to continue with Candace, but I don't know if some people are going to get their noses bent.
No, you can continue to serve multiple terms.
Okay.
Example, Exhibit A, Dave DeVarty.
What?
Well, you're not the chair, but you
Which
continue to serve.
which article did you cite, Todd?
It's the top of
Section
page five.
6.1, page
The very
4.
top of page 5.
It's
Is this
Article
about
6
office?
officers.
It's about what, serving in the same office.
Chair and vice chair.
Oh, in the same office. Yeah.
I move that we strike the sentence, "No member shall serve more than 3 consecutive full terms in the same office."
I'll second that.
Yes, I'll third it.
Okay, well, hold on, we're not to the review of bylaws yet. That comes next.
I think we're not following
I have a question.
Robert's
Chris.
rules.
When it says, and maybe one of the lawyers would know better, but when it says serve no more than 3 consecutive full terms, is a full term the 1 year, or is it Okay, so it's not the full term as a member. So whatever the initial term is, you can't just do, 9 years if it's a 3-year term. It's just the 1 year.
This is just the officers,
In the same
not,
office.
not the
So
commissioners.
If you're a chair or vice chair,
Never mind.
you can serve.
I'll just pull
like-
back the question.
I get what you're saying,
You
but
can serve,
yes, I
you can
think
serve
it's,
10 3-year terms if you want.
No,
You don't want to serve for 30 years?
Do we have the cart before the horse here?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
We're electing right now, right?
we are
Yes.
electing right now,
Okay.
yes.
Well, I move that we continue with that discussion.
Any other nominees for chair?
It's not my baby.
All right. All in favor of re-electing Candace Breyer, me, as chairperson for another term?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Great. All right.
Unanimous.
Vice chair,
I will nominate myself.
yes, Chris
I second
Second.
that nomination.
Fraley is currently the vice chair. Does anyone else want to be nominated for vice chair? Make it interesting, have like a runoff? All right. All in favor of electing Chris Fraley as vice chair for a 1-year term? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations, Chris, you have been re-elected as vice chair.
Thank you.
Moving on to review of bylaws. We do have a copy of our current bylaws in front of us. As you will note, there are some modifications. My understanding is that these changes came from the city attorney's office. I don't think it's anything procedural. It has to do with realigning some of the terminology with what exists elsewhere throughout the city and kind of making everything jive. Obviously, if everyone, we just received these late today, so if everyone wants more time to review these, we can obviously postpone this and review the bylaws at another meeting. But if there's any comments or discussion, we can put that out there today as well. Dave?
I would move to table this to the next meeting to give us all a chance to look at it.
Support.
There's a
Agree.
lot of red here. And I definitely, before I can comfortably vote on this, I do want to look at it.
Okay. I guess the question is, do you want to have any discussion tonight about
If
anything we already are
And there's
aware
a-
of, or?
There's one thing I would change to a red line, and that's in 6.1. No member shall serve more than 3 consecutive full terms in the same office. I feel like the first sentence of this clause, or the second sentence, the third sentence, the officer shall be elected each year from among the voting members, gives us the full capability to change those positions. It's not an autocracy. It's run by a majority vote. And I feel comfortable trusting future boards to make wise decisions about who the chair and vice chair are. So I would suggest that become something that we put a red line through. But leave that for next meeting to decide.
Todd?
Yes, I noted to you and John before the meeting started, I will not be here next month. I did have a chance to review this. I just have one additional comment for you folks to consider when I'm not here next month. And it's just a tiny little annoying thing. Article 7.1 says we shall meet at least monthly. We don't, because we combine our November and December meetings as one. And if one were going to be perhaps overly precise, that should be made clear, unless we set alternate dates.
You got to read the whole sentence.
Yeah, I do that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Chris?
I just wanted to back up a second and say, Mr. DeVardy's made a motion to table this, and I supported it.
Table
case
to
that
next
was-
Yes, no, I
Classic
did.
vice chair stuff there, Chris. I like it.
All right. So we'll postpone,
If we vote, you got to vote on it.
yes.
I'd like to support Mr. DeVardy's motion
To
that we table
postpone,
this.
yes, to postpone it. Is a month enough time? Is everyone comfortable
Yeah.
talking about it in June? I
I
think,
believe so.
I think so.
my understanding is that we only have a couple items on our agenda, so it should be, okay.
May.
Yes, sorry, I skipped ahead, our May meeting. I guess what I ask is for everyone to come prepared with any comments or changes, so that we can easily communicate that to the city attorney's office, because obviously anything we suggest will have to be reviewed by them before then we can review and approve it. So, all in favor of postponing discussion and review of bylaws, voting on the bylaws to a future meeting?
To the next meeting.
To the next meeting, yes, in May. Say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, so we will review our bylaws at our May ZBA meeting. Communications, we have addressed. Public comment. If there is anyone from the public who wishes to address the ZBA, I do not see anyone in person, but if there's anyone remotely, please call in now. Press *9 to raise your hand or use the raised hand function on the web link.
There are no callers.
Thank you, Kristen. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion from Chris, support? From Chris, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.